Now, let's go ahead and look at today's fundamental principle of Prout. So here it is. Prout is the um, progressive utilization theory. That's what it stands for. And this is the fifth fundamental principle. And the fifth fundamental principle says the method of utilization should vary in accordance with the changes in time, place, and person, and the utilization should be of a progressive nature. So, we've been talking about rational distribution and maximum utilization. So, this is kind of referring back to the previous principles. Okay. Um, so, let's go ahead now and break this down. So, this principle is just, I think, a reminder, a basic reminder that we should never forget. And that is that things always change. And life as we know it um, is never the same after certain periods of time. Just think now how different our lives are during this pandemic with the social distancing that we're going through. You know, I was I was listening to a podcast yesterday or a couple of days ago, and it was recorded in like January or something like that, and the people in the podcast were talking about their plans for the summer and things they want to do, and just like that, 2020 was canceled. We also have we also had plans here. We had our summer retreat. We had our couple of spring retreats canceled. So things change all the time. Life isn't the same. Life isn't even the same as it was in the 90s, or even 20 years ago because of all the new technology, right? Think about what you're doing right now on your Saturday morning or evening, depending on where you are. And there was a time where you couldn't imagine that you would be in collective meditation through virtually with people you haven't even met, maybe, who are all over the world. So, anyways, um, the socioeconomic policies should be such that, or the socioeconomic theory or paradigm that we follow needs to be able to fit into whatever time, place, or individual that it affects. In other words, um, things should not be stagnant. Things are always changing, and so policies will have to change. And if we should ever have a socioeconomic system that doesn't follow that, then we are just perpetuating dogma. And it would be nice, actually, if many of our world religions applied this and built into their religious doctrine. They have this fundamental principle that is that all of our ideas and policies and practices should be open to change depending on changes in the new era. Here in the United States, we had a federal stimulus package that was of trillions of dollars that was meant to bring relief to people during this pandemic. And, the vast amount of that money went to corporations. But also, for the first time, I think, ever in American history, actually people, and not everybody, but US citizens who had filed their taxes in the last 2 years, they were given like $1,200 per person. And there was even more exclusions to that. Like if you were married to somebody who was an undocumented person, you didn't have access to that relief money. So, even though there were those really ridiculous limitations to that, the fact is that the United States made a change and for the first time ever gave out, you know, aid to the people in the form of dollars, cash. So that's good. And there were people who during this pandemic were saying, no, ho, 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 wait up a minute. You can't just be giving that and giving this and giving that because what people are going to expect is they're going to expect this to go forward after the pandemic. So if you were to give some kind of, let's say, Medicare for all now, some kind of, healthcare for all now guaranteed, they're saying, well, if you give that now, then people are going to want that ongoing. And yes, yes, I think that would be true, and that would be something that I would want. And but just that fear of change, that fear that we cannot adapt to a new era, and we cannot make a fundamental change in society. Well, changes happens all the time, and this pandemic is the best example. Thank goodness, thank God we have this pandemic now. I mean, despite all the pain that it's caused, that we have it as a reference to show the future generations and ourselves that we can change. We can all change our behavior. We can all adapt to something new. You know, in the future, there's going to be more technology, and that technology is going to cause profound changes in our lives. And so we will have to create policies around that technology. And there could be other changes too that we have to learn to adapt to, that our policies have to adapt to, like the pandemic I just described. A natural disaster could occur, an earthquake could happen where a whole city could be wiped out. And anything that we thought was working may have to be altered, and we should be open to that. Hopefully, there will be no more, well, there may be more pandemics in the future. And when that happens, we'll have to make some more changes. So, as Proutists, those of us that believe in Prout, want to see Prout established on this planet, we have to be open to that. And it also helps us to not be so dogmatic, because certain Prout policies might work well in these countries, but not in other countries. You know, for example, Prout believes that, uh, you know, 30% of production, between 20 and 30% of production in any local area or any country or region, should be, let's say, agriculture, so that there's enough food to provide for people in that area. That, and you don't have to expect food being imported from other places. You can be more sustainable. But not every place on the planet is so fertile and can produce a wide variety of foods, but can still produce maybe some food, and some more or less. And so you see then a policy like that may not fit in certain places, and that's okay, because we already know, according to this principle, that we have to adjust to time, place, and person, to the different age and the different needs of different areas and people. So that's pretty much what this principle is saying. Let me know if you have now any comments, any questions.